Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a book haul. Yes, another one. It's going to be my winter book haul because winter is almost over, and I guess I kind of do these seasonally because I think the last book haul was a autumn book haul, so yeah, might as well make it seasonal. There's quite a few books, but not that I would say too many, even though really the volume of books I'm buying does not balance out with the volume that I'm reading, so maybe we need to do something about that. But yeah, I guess there's two very different hobbies in buying books and reading them. So we'll start off with the books that I got for Christmas. There's 3 of them and they're all sort of a variation on a theme. So they're from my sister. She knows that I'm really into like translated or just world literature, so she got me 3 Korean literature books, 2 of which are English translations, translated from the Korean to English, and then 1 written in English. And we'll start with this one. It is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. And so this is basically what I would say is an exploration told through the eyes of 4 different women. An exploration on contemporary soul and the sort of crushing and very unrealistic beauty standards and also societal pressures that women in Korea have to face. That's kind of all I know about this, but just the premise itself, it sounds really interesting. It feels like it's going to be potentially almost a companion read to Kim Ji-young, born 1982, in the fact that it's a story about women told by a woman in a society that is very much geared towards the male experience. But yeah, sounds interesting. Next one we've got is Tower by Bae Myung-hoon. I mean, look at the cover. Sensational, gorgeous, beautiful. Love the vivid colours. Love the very sort of Art Deco building, and just... But essentially it feels like it's going to be almost a science fiction riff on J.G. Ballard's High Rise, because it's set in 674 story skyscraper, and it's almost like a society has been formed inside. So in that respect, it feels very Ballard-esque, if we should say that. But yeah, like, I'm excited, and I love Korean literature. I think it's some of the most inventive and intriguing and brilliant studies on society and social aspects. And I mean, the fact that Park Chan-wook, one of my favourite directors ever, has praised this book and the author's writing style just kind of made me definitely have to make sure I got my hands on it. The final book that I got for Christmas is Evening Proposal by Pyung Hae-young. And again, this is another collection of short stories. I think I forgot to mention that. That's a collection of short stories. This is another one. This is all about sort of the dark side of urban society. And I think Kafka... Yep, Franz Kafka is mentioned on the back. So whenever anyone says that it's got Kafka-esque elements, I am all about that. I think society is inherently Kafkaesque. Sometimes it feels like just things are just so much more complicated and convoluted and weird than they should be. I don't really know much about this. My sister said that she was researching books because she didn't want to just get me things that I'd asked for. She wanted to sort of take inspiration for the fact that I'd asked for this and then find other books that might complement it. So yeah, I feel like this is going to be like a good read alongside that one, just for the fact that it's going to be strange, Kafka elements, and scathing looks at dark side of society. All about that. Next, I've got 2 books in December that I bought. These are both from a really cool bookstore in Brighton. I didn't go there physically because I don't live anywhere near Brighton, but I found out about it and I thought, wow, like, this sounds really cool. Let me get some books from there. So it's from Afrory Books, which is a black-owned business that literally the stock list is only black authors, which I think's great. And I wanted to read Open Water because I'd heard such good things about it. I've read it, brilliant, sensational, loved it. So I got this and I thought, you know what, I might as well get something else when I'm at it. And I'd recently watched the Rebecca Hall directed film Passing. So I was like, excellent, get my hands on this novella, it sounds so sensational. So if you're looking to read more black authors, I definitely recommend sourcing your books from that bookstore, so I'll leave a link in the description. But brilliant. This is all about two young artists in London falling in love and coming to terms with their feelings while also trying to navigate London as a black person. Sensational read, definitely recommend it. And then Passing is essentially about two black women passing as white women. One does it intentionally and has to literally pass every single day of her life and live essentially a lie, and I don't know what that would do to you psychologically, and I'm looking forward to sort of reading how Nella Larson sort of explores that, because the movie was brilliant, but I feel like there was more to explore there, and hopefully this will. And then the second woman sort of passes incidentally, so sometimes she'll be just perceived as a white woman, and the idea about incidental and literally having to pass to survive in this life you've created for yourself sounds really interesting, so I can't wait to read that. Moving on, I think we're going to go to science fiction and fantasy now. First one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I've got a second-hand copy. It's a bit manky, to be honest. Look at that. Bit gross. I picked this up because I watched the Shadow and Bone series last year and I was kind of intrigued because I hadn't encountered like the Six of Crow characters, and they were in that in a new sort of invented storyline. I have read the first book in is it the Shadow and Bone series, or it's called something else, but yeah, I've read Shadow and Bone, the first book. It was alright. I might continue the series, but everyone raves about Six of Crows and says it's much better. So I thought, you know what, I love fantasy, let me sort of just delve in and see whether this is more my thing than Shadow and Bone was. But we'll see, who knows, the hype might not be real. Next one is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Again, another second-hand one. This is a bit manky as well. I haven't had that great luck with my second-hand books recently. A lot of them are coming quite dirty, which is a bit gross. I don't mind if it's like a book from the 80s or the 90s or maybe even the 60s, but when it's one that hasn't been published that long ago, you think, oh, what's happened? I don't really know much about this. I know that it's sort of a riff on the Canterbury Tales, which I thought was quite interesting. Never read the Canterbury Tales, never will, because it's like old beyond belief, and I'm sure Chaucer was dry as anyone. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I should read it. Someone convince me in the comments if you think I should read that, and I'll probably ignore you because I don't want to. But yeah, like, I love science fiction. I think this sounds really interesting, and I also love Quinn's Ideas, which is like literally one of the best YouTubers all about science fiction and fantasy. And I've watched some of his videos on Hyperion, but I didn't want to obviously watch too many because spoilers. Some of the stuff that is said about it really sounds kind of amazing, so I thought it was a high time that I actually got this and tried to read the series. Yeah. So maybe we'll read this soon. Again, I say I'm going to read something, but I might not pick that up for years, who knows, because I'm just that much of a twat sometimes. Now, this, I don't know whether many people know what this is, but I am kind of really intrigued. This is The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. Here we go. Can't pronounce names again. This is a rather old fantasy novel / novella. It's almost perhaps like the cross-section between a fairy tale and modern fantasy. I think it was written in 1924, and I'm just kind of, I don't know whether I would call it research, but maybe it is. Like, I'm just trying to sort of read more fantasy, because I would love at some point in the future to write a fantasy novel, but maybe I'm not talented. Maybe I'll never get it published, who knows, but just for fun. And so I want to read everything that I can get my hands on that sounds interesting, and potentially sort of look at where the genre has come from and where it's going. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, J.R. Tolkien is like perhaps what most people would consider the pinnacle of fantasy. I would likely agree, but I haven't read enough fantasy to say that. But I mean, I read The Hobbit when I was a kid, fell in love with it, have watched all the movies like a billion times, read Lord of the Rings last year and fell even deeper in love with it. I'm reading the Silmarillion this year. I'm doing research for that as well. It's going to be a whole thing. Thought I would try something that some people have compared this to Lord of the Rings and says that it's on a par with it. So that's quite intriguing. I guess, I don't know what the King of Elfland is, but I think they're fairies rather than elves, which I'm kind of disappointed because I love elves. And I think they're like the coolest fantasy race ever. And if I could be a fantasy character or actually live in a fantasy land, I would be an elf. For an example, like I've been obsessed with elves since I can remember. Like, there's just something so beautiful, and I think it's like the connection with nature and immortality is quite appealing. It would be interesting to see what sort of fairies, like, is this more folklore fairy? Is this more fantasy leaning towards elves? So I'm quite intrigued by this. Obviously second-hand, look how old that is. I'm not too sure when this one was published. We find out because I think it's quite an old one. I'm going to say 70s, 1982. See, that's what I mean, like, this edition, 2011, 1982. It's not far behind it. So clearly whoever had this kept it in good condition. Thank you. Very, very intrigued by this. Also very intrigued by this, following on from my elf obsession. This is Defenders of... oh dear. Ulthuan, maybe, who knows, by Graham McNeill. This is a Warhammer novel. I'm not really, like, familiar with Warhammer at all. I just know it's a thing, that's about it. But, like, the main thing is it's a fantasy book about elves, and I swear there's not that many in the world. Maybe I haven't been looking hard enough. But this sounds quite interesting. Like, it's about two brothers who love the same woman, and then they're also trying to defend their homeland from the dark elves. So it's like high elves versus dark elves. Oh, there's also a witch king. So yeah, interesting. Recently I've also started playing World of Warcraft, and guess what my character is? She's a night elf, and she's glorious. But yeah, I'm distracting myself at the moment because I've just been feeling really kind of, I don't know, in the midst of an existential crisis, I would say. So I've just been sort of immersing myself into fantasy worlds just as a distraction. And you know what? It's been nice. It's been rather nice. As I was saying earlier, I'm doing research to read the Silmarillion, and my research is Old Norse stuff. Last year I read the Poetic Edda. The Prose Edda. This year I'm reading the Poetic Edda. I might read Beowulf, and I might read The Green Knight, because I know that Tolkien did do translations of these books before I read the Silmarillion, but I think I might read it straight after I've read this, because he was a scholar. So everyone kind of, I mean, I don't want to say Tolkien wasn't a genius, because I think he was, but everyone sort of, I don't know whether they know that he took a lot of inspiration from the things that he was studying and teaching, and made it almost his own. I mean, the fact that in The Hobbit, all the names of the dwarves come from the prose/poetic Edda. Gandalf, name of a dwarf. Elements from the stories can be seen in these old stories. It's almost like he's taken mythology and reworked it to fit a completely fantastical world, and I think that's brilliant. But I kind of feel like to get the Silmarillion, to get the most out of it, I need to do my research first. So I've been researching, building up to it, and then I'll read it. So that'll be interesting. Next, lot of books. There's a lot of French literature, but first there is this German language German language translated into English, but a story told by a Mongolian of the Tuvan people. So this is Gulzan. I searched this earlier to try and pronounce it, and I've forgotten. Gulzan Shinag? Oh, God. It's called The Blue Sky. It's by potentially Gulzan Shinag, but I am the worst at pronouncing names. I do my research and then forget it. Idiot. This sort of captured me. So I was doing research at some point. I was trying to see whether I could find a book from every single country in the world to read, because I think, like, world literature is amazing, and I want to find out about all these fantastic, beautiful, amazing lives going on around the planet. And this came on my radar because I think Mongolia is so intriguing. Beautiful nomadic culture. Still to this day, you've got people hunting using eagles, living in yurts, I think they're called, but they're obviously called something else in their language. But this is essentially, I believe, the Tuvan people. What I read is that they don't necessarily tell stories in written form, so they're still very oral tradition. And this is the first piece of literature written on paper from the perspective of this culture, and I just thought that was amazing. It's written in German because the author studied German and then taught German in Mongolia, I believe. It's about a young shepherd boy coming of age while also coming across a world slowly encroached by technology. There's so much praise on the back here, and I'm just really intrigued by it, and I heard that it's quite a poetic and beautiful story, so I had to get this. Right, on to the French literature. Yes, there's loads. Let's get into it. The first one, I can't even remember why I got this. I think it might be the name, but it is Jacques the Fatalist by Denis Diderot. I really don't know why I got this. I think it just literally probably was the name. It just sounds kind of intriguing, Jacques the Fatalist. And maybe it was my state of mind at the time. I think it's almost like a philosophical look at life, fate, and does anyone actually have any control over their lives at all? So, like, nice light reading. Let me just chuck that over there because I don't really have anything to say because I don't know what it's about. Next, we've got a really ugly copy of Marcel Proust, or Proust? Marcel Proust, Swan's Way, or De Code de Chez Swan. Again, I don't really know what this is about, but I know it's a classic, and I know it's about, like, is it about a young boy? I'm not too sure, but this is secondhand. It's a really dull, ugly looking copy. I think it might be a coming-of-age novel. I don't actually know. Why did I buy this? Why did I buy that? I mean, I know why I bought this, because it's like one of those books that, like, you read. It's like a classic that you're supposed to read. I don't know, like, am I reading this for me or other people? Story of my life, hey? Next one is the classic, The Three Musketeers, or Le Troisième Musketeer, by Alexandre Dumas. I know the reason why I'm reading this. I've been meaning to read it perhaps in the past, like I've considered it, but when they announced, I don't know who they are, but the proverbial they, when it was announced that there's going to be like almost a very blockbuster sort of cinematic universe created in France to rival like Hollywood stuff that's all connected cinematic universes, because of Marvel, they're doing like massive movies of this with some of the best actors in France. You've got Vincent Cassel, you've got Louis Garrel, you've got Ava Green, you've got Francois Civil, you've got everyone. You've got what's that guy? What's his name? The dude in the film. I've forgotten his name. But yeah, it's got so many amazing people in it, and I'm so excited for it. So I thought I need to read the source material before it comes out next year. And they're doing like 2 parts, so I think it's like Le Troisième Musketeer d'Artagnan and then Le Troisième Musketeer Milady. And just the fact that Ava Green is going to be in a French movie again. I think she's sensational. I haven't watched her most recent French film because you can't watch it anywhere. What am I? Like, do I read because of movies, or do movies because I read? What? Do I read because I want to read something, or is it because of movies? Half the time it is movies. Next we've got, oh god, Justine by the Marquis de Sade. Le Marquis de Sade. I don't know why I've got this. I guess I'm just intrigued. You know when something is supposedly so disgusting and despicable that you're just kind of like, I'm intrigued. I kind of feel like I have to. Curiosity got the better of me. It's all about transgression. Like I've read some transgressive novels in my time. What is it? I've read, what's his face? What is that novel? Leopold von something Masuk. What did he write? Venus in Fur. I've read Venus in Fur. Wasn't really that controversial as far as I remember. And then I read Georges Bataille's Story of the Eye. Histoire de l'œil. Jesus Christ, don't read that if you want to ever look at eggs or eyes in the same way ever again. literally the most vile piece of literature I've read. And so I thought, is Marquis de Sade as bad as Bataille? Or it's become sort of part of like the cultural collective mind that this is vile writing. It's about a girl that literally goes through some stuff, and yeah, who knows. I think it's more of a curiosity thing that I got that, not my French literature obsession. And then the final one is Stendhal's Love. The reason why I got this, and I know it, because it's from a song. It's a song by Serge Gainsbourg, La Cristallisation comme dit Stendhal, from a really bad movie called Anna, which had Anna Karenina in it. It was awful. Literally, why did it get made? It's kind of good in a really bad way though, because some of the outfits and just Anna Karenina is magic. And the Serge Gainsbourg soundtrack is a musical as well. One of his songs is literally La Cristallisation de Stendhal. And so I was like, what is crystallization? What is Stendhal talking about crystallization? And it's like this theory on love. And it's also probably quite backwards, because he got rejected by a woman. And so then he probably wrote this as a sort of like, oh, woe is me. The result is an intensely personal dissection of the process of falling and being in love. A unique blend of poetry, anecdote, philosophy, psychology, and social observation. Interesting. Okay, so that's the end of the haul. Not as many as I thought I had. Yeah, let me know in the comment section what books you've bought recently. Whether any of these books take your fancy. Let me know what one you thought was the most interesting or one you would be excited to read. And as usual, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want more from this glittering personality. A bit awkward. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.